Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Uncovering Recovery. My name is Taquina Davis, and I am the managing partner with Healthy Strategies. So, in honor of Women's Health Month, we will be hosting our Uncovering Recovery series all month. And so, we're going to be hearing stories from women and their journey through recovery. So when we think about recovery, so recovery can take on various meanings. It all depends on the context. So there's no single way or standard definition of recovery. Recovery can and will look different for everybody. But however, recovery can be defined as a process of change in which people are improving their health and well-being. So those in recovery are in the process of overcoming an illness or a disorder or a different phase of life. But for them, a state of recovery represents a state of good mental, emotional, and physical health. So today we have Miss Connie Davis, and she will be sharing her story on recovery. So, Miss Connie, thank you for sharing your story.
Good afternoon. You're very welcome.
All right,
Uh,
so I'm just going to ask you a few questions. So,
okay.
what's your recovery story?
So my recovery story is grief, and it's grief that started 40 years ago. I lost a son at 3 years old, and I never really processed that grief. I just kind of hid it. I was still working. I'm now retired, but I was working, and I would put myself in my work, or I would just not really do anything about it. I would just, if I knew that time was coming every year, when his birthday came. And then right after his birthday was his death date. And I would just go into a deep depression. But I never really did anything. It's just, I kind of just pushed it under the rug until I did retire. And then when I did retire, I didn't have anything to push it under. And so I would always get sick every year. So I still got sick it happened just recently. I got sick and I couldn't kind of like get over it. And then I was very depressed and I couldn't figure out how to get through that moment. And someone asked me, did I have a seasonal depression disorder? And I was like, well, yeah, I probably do. And then we talked about that. And so I realized that I had pushed all that grief back and I never really dealt with it. And so I started doing things like in my head. I probably should actually go back into counseling. I went to counseling after he died, and I don't think I was very honest. In fact, I know I wasn't very honest with myself or with what was going on. So I kind of pushed it back. So it's grief and it affects me in different ways. I just went to a funeral yesterday and it was hard for me, but I pushed through it. But some things I can't do. It's sometimes I can't process that with my mental health. And if it's not good for my mental health, I now can say no, I don't want to do that. But it took me years because this happened 40 years ago. So it took me years to process that and um to deal with it. Like I'm just now starting to deal with that grief. That's a long time to uh just suppress it. It's you don't think of it because you start living. You know that you have to live that life and you just start you don't process it. And when you don't process it, it becomes very unhealthy. You start having mental changes, physical changes, and it just affects your life in so many different ways.
Well, thank you, first of all, Miss Connie, for sharing your journey. So, what have you learned from this journey?
So I have learned that I need to um, speak up and say when it's not good for my mental health or something's not good for me. Like the funeral that I went to yesterday, I just could not look at the body because it's not good for my mental health. So I did not. And I told the people that I was with, I can't do that. And they respected that. And, but that's what I do. So now I just say what's good for me. If it's, I make it not about me, but in some ways I guess I do because it's my mental health. And then I own things. Like I used to like not own it, but now if something happens, I just own it. Like, nope, I did that. I own it. And so that's probably my recovery story. I probably own more stuff now than I used to, and I talk about it more. But it's hard to talk about grief because it's hard to talk about it with your family. It's hard to talk about it with friends because people don't want to talk about it because they don't know what to say. Sometimes you don't want them to say anything, but I do, if I want to talk about it, then I talk about it. But I own a lot of stuff. So, and I'm clear on what is good for my mental health and what is not good for my mental health. And that's a work in progress because I still have a hard time saying no sometimes. And, that's probably part of my mental health because I'm always wanting to please someone. So
Okay, thank you for sharing. So, what are the next steps for you, Miss Connie?
the next steps are currently in a recovery program, and I will stay in that recovery program probably for a very long time because I wasn't. And when I started the recovery program, I always thought recovery was about drugs and alcohol until I went to a bigger recovery seminar and I realized that it's not. It's about maybe what you're going through. And I think everybody goes through we're all in recovery from something because we're all not happy. And I try to do things to make myself happy. So that my story looks like um, I do more amazing things for myself because I'm important. And so I try to figure out what makes me happy. I do things that make me happy. If it doesn't make me happy, sometimes I do it, but then I get mad at myself and then I stop and I say, no, you can't do that. You have to do things that make you happy because life is short. So you have to own your stuff and make yourself happy and realize what your mental health is and what's good for it and what's not good for your mental health. Because the mental health is important.
Yes, yes. Thank you. And yes, Miss Connie, you are very important because you make an impact to many people's lives. Thank you again for sharing your journey on grief because recovery looks different for everyone. So
Right.
thanks again, Miss Connie, and we appreciate you being honest, being vulnerable, and being transparent to help others as they journey through recovery. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome. I hope I've helped someone deal with something that they might be going through. It's important. Thank
Yes.
you.
All right. Thanks.